Hi, I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week. 2020's hurricane season touched every corner of the state. There are still active storms in the Gulf and Atlantic even as we speak. Eta and Theta, with the possibility of the 30th named storm of the season, a record, Iota, forming by the time this show airs. Southwest Louisiana saw 2 hurricane landfalls this year, where high winds and some storm surge made life miserable along the coast. TWILA's Neil Melancon takes us to Beauregard Parish, where those back-to-back storms have ruined trees and plans for folks living there.
In the rural communities north of Lake Charles, the damage from this year's storms looks familiar. Roofs with tarps on them and shuttered businesses mark the 1-2 punch of Hurricanes Laura and Delta. For landowners like the Dowers, a picture is worth 1,000 words on the damage. The trees in their pond that are brown are from Laura in August. The still green ones are from Delta in October.
You could step just out the door and just hear the popping noise, sound like firecrackers going off, that the trees were breaking in half. We couldn't see anything. I probably would have been scared if I'd seen how close the trees were that were breaking. We thought they were further out in the woods.
Deborah and her husband have had quite the ordeal beyond the storms. Mike spent the early part of this year in treatment for his second bout with cancer. It's left him too weak at a time when there's too much work for healthy people on their property.
In April, he got his stem cell transplant, and he had to stay in Houston another 3 months. So it's been a year. He still hasn't gotten his strength back. So we're just trying to do this by ourselves.
It's work that needs to get done. All the down material is a haven for insects and disease.
Okay, the highest priority is managing this debris that's on the ground. This is an attractant to insects, to disease. Already some of the entomologists that are monitoring this situation are seeing an escalation in Ips beetles, and that could continue to damage the timber that remains out here. Add to that, if we have an especially dry year, this is really increasing the wildfire risk.
The Dower situation is typical of landowners here in western Louisiana. 70% of their trees are down this year, enough wood material to represent Louisiana's annual output.
Statewide, there's enough timber on the ground from these hurricanes combined to actually match what we would normally harvest in a year for the state of Louisiana.
Preliminary estimates of the damage are at $1.5 billion, but that doesn't include the 15 to 18 years it's going to take to get these trees regrown. The only relief in sight is for some programs powered through years of severance fees.
Some of that money is returned to the parishes and where the timber is cut for road and bridge maintenance, but some of it is actually set aside in a special fund and it's in that forest productivity program as a cost share back to landowners to let them actually recoup part of their severance tax monies to help them reforest their land.
In the meantime, the Dowers are counting their blessings. Their 80-year-old father is still active doing what he can to get this side-by-side back up and running. Deborah said at the very least, they've learned how much they can endure.
It's just been a rough couple of years, but we survived it, and we've got it better off than a lot of other people did.
As workshops on how to get some of that financial aid become available, we'll bring you that information as soon as we know. Follow us on our social media and our website, twilatv.org. And of course, as you saw, Avery, they need that financial assistance, advice. Debbie's plans were to retire on some of that money revenue from those trees. And I mean, she has a job and they have work, and I mean, they're going to be okay. Yeah. But I mean, they have children and grandchildren. They want to enjoy that time. All of that area, that property that was so lush is now, so heavily damaged, and God knows how long it's going to take for them to get through all that, to get back to some semblance of normality on that property.
I remember back right after Hurricane Laura speaking with Buck Vanderstein with the Louisiana Forestry Association, and I asked him, how long is it going to take some people to recover from this? And he said, some people will never recover from this, and it sounds like that's the case with the folks in your story.
Indeed, and I mean, I think you can see, Buck could certainly see, and the Dowers can certainly see, some of the people in that area are recovering from Rita, and so they haven't really regained that. Some of those trees were just getting ready to be harvested, and then these two storms come in and knock them down. And then on top of that, I mean, the guy, Mike Dower, suffered from cancer twice, in the last 3 years. There's stories like that all throughout this region, and unfortunately, I don't think the wood is going to be there for them to be able to, have any kind of financial boon to this. Some of them are saying that they're getting as little as $2 a ton for that salvage material that they're scraping off the forest floor.
And that's not even paying for what they did. Thank you very much, Neil Malasaw. Now, there are some good things happening in Beauregard Parish, though. Two organizations worked together and brought fencing and other supplies to cattle ranchers in need. Louisiana Land Bank and the Louisiana Cattlemen's Association arranged for a drop-off of supplies at the Beauregard Fairgrounds. LCA Executive Vice President Dusty Pendergrass helped coordinate the donation. He says the need for fencing is especially strong right now in the densely forested western part of the state ahead of winter.
Up here in Beauregard Parish, Allen Parish, Vernon parishes, there's a great timber industry up here, and that's a great thing. But with that, if you introduce hurricane-force winds or tornadoes, you're going to have a lot of trees on top of fences, on top of barns. So if we're able to get these fences patched, get them repaired to where these guys can hopefully get cattle turned back out into their larger pastures, or just be able to keep cattle off of their hay fields, they're able to get back in there and take care of their cattle and their livestock throughout the winter.
Louisiana Land Bank President and CEO Stephen Austin says his company knew they needed to do something even before Hurricane Laura made landfall.
We all felt like it was important for us to find a way to help in the relief efforts, but do it approaching an agriculture objective. So we reached out to Mr. Pendergrass and others and through the agriculture department and found out what the needs were, and it was obvious that fencing was the first need. So we went back to our directors, and they approved a significant dollar amount to donate to the growers and the producers here in this area to help them out.
Meanwhile, the Louisiana Farm Bureau is also sending help in the form of protein tubs. The Board of Directors voted at its last meeting to send 4 trailers of protein tubs to Southwest Louisiana. Cash in hand is something all of our farmers and ranchers hit by hurricanes Laura, Delta, and Zeta could use as soon as possible. However, congressional disaster declarations usually take more than a year to issue payments. However, the second round of the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program could get money into producers' hands quickly. According to Louisiana Farm Bureau Senior Commodity and Public Policy Director Brian Breaux, specialty crop farmers and folks who own nurseries are eligible for payments through CFAP 2, but many have not yet applied. Louisiana Commissioner of Agriculture and Forestry Dr. Mike Strain says they need to do so quickly because the deadline is December 11th.
This is actually a percentage of your gross sales. So depending on what your gross sales were, you can be eligible for different amounts of money. But again, if you don't go there by December the 11th or contact your Farm Services agency, if you miss the deadline, that's pretty hard and fast. You won't be able to apply. And so, look at that, and farmers.gov is a great place to go and look at all the many programs there. There are many things available we need to take advantage of.
You'll find links to farmers.gov on our website at twilatv.org. Louisiana cotton farmers are finally wrapping up this season's harvest. As Craig Gautreaux shows us, the stream of tropical storms across Louisiana hampered harvest and hurt yields and lint quality.
Cotton pickers across Louisiana are busy putting the finishing touches on the 2020 cotton crop. More than 90% of the crop has been picked, and yields have ranged from poor to excellent.
Yields are all over the place. I've heard reports anywhere from 600 to 1,500 pounds of lint Tensas Parish seems to have had a really good crop this year. They were able to get most of it out prior to any storm damage.
The storm damage Price is referring to could be from one of 6 named tropical storm systems making landfall in Louisiana this year. Laura, Beta, and Delta were responsible for most of the damage, and very few acres escaped their wrath.
You add all that up, we've had 100,000 acres impacted, and significantly, and I think that's well over half of the total acreage in the state.
Louisiana has seen cotton acreage decrease from more than 700,000 acres to about 175,000 acres during the past 20 years. Cotton gins have closed, but Price believes there is enough ginning capacity left to gin the entire crop.
I think we still have enough infrastructure there where we'll be able to get it ginned. It may not be until January or February when some of them get through.
And the problems of this season may lead to a smaller crop next year.
I think we're going to see a decrease in acreage because, especially if a producer took it on the chin with 2 hurricanes and had their crop in the field, they're probably not going to want to plant cotton.
The storms not only reduced yields, but also caused a decrease in lint quality. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gotro reporting.
With soybean exports and prices increasing, Louisiana farmers are more than likely to switch some cotton acres to soybeans next year. Still to come on Twila, we go from field to feast with a great dish using Louisiana rice. Stay with us.
Welcome to Field to Feast, where we profile Louisiana and its local ingredients. This morning we're in Old Algiers outside of New Orleans, where a green thumb, philanthropy, and Louisiana rice meet in a fantastic way.
Field to Feast with Jennifer Finley is brought to you by the Louisiana Crawfish Promotion and Research Board, Louisiana Crawfish, ask before you eat, and by the Louisiana Beef Industry Council, beef, it's what's for dinner, and by the Louisiana Rice Promotion Board, think rice.
Look at all this great stuff you have going on. Talk to me about what I'm seeing, which is an explosion of flavor everywhere I look.
Yes, it is. Pretty much everything out here is edible culinary food that I'm growing. I like to highlight the crossover between the growing region here in South Louisiana with growing regions in Southeast Asia and India.
Why Asia? How did this all begin?
In 2009, we'll go back to, which is the first trip I took to Thailand.
Okay.
And while I was in Thailand, I did a backpacking trip through northern Thailand, wherein I met a number of Burmese refugees who are living in Thailand. And now these are people that had to flee Myanmar because of the civil war that's been going on there since the 1960s. I got to meet a bunch of those folks, and basically they wanted me to come and live with them in the villages there and help teach them English. I wanted to help them, but I didn't really see that as being the best way to do it necessarily. So anyway, I kept in contact with them. I did end up sending a teacher to go live with them for about 6 months, and while he was over there, him and the villagers set up a program where we sent bus drivers to these villages where the kids just weren't able to go to school. So anyway, in 2010 we started One World Family, which is a nonprofit organization, and what we've been doing for the last 10 years is sending bus drivers to villages in northern Thailand where the kids were unable to go to school.
So you're busing the refugee children to and from school?
To Thai schools, yep, exactly. So now we have a nonprofit that we need to fund. So we're trying to find different ideas and ways to fund the operations over there. So it was out of that we decided to start doing a food pop-up to raise money for the nonprofit.
Okay.
So that's when La Pet started, and that was the name of our pop-up, which did Burmese food.
So today we're going to head into your kitchen and do a dish, and we're going to gather some of your local ingredients out here for this dish. What do we have going on with this bush?
Great, so right now we're going to harvest some Thai eggplants. So these
looks nothing like eggplant to me.
Exactly, but you know, these are more of the original eggplants, because you wonder why are eggplants called eggplants when usually they're purple and oblong. But this is the original kind of eggplant, which guess what? It looks like an egg.
Where are you getting this? The seed catalog? Is that,
Yep.
are you ordering these seeds?
Exactly,
Okay.
yep. Yeah, I pretty much do everything out here from seed. I prefer doing direct in ground, seed sowing. It's just the easiest way to do it. So yeah, these ones, I can't even remember where I got these seeds from, but either some seed catalog or some friend of mine who's doing similar things, because always a lot of sharing happening amongst local gardeners too.
I love that. I love that. So we're going to harvest the Thai eggplant to make our dish today. What are we making and what else are we going to put in it?
So today we're going to make a garden pho.
Okay.
So pho, as you may know, is a Vietnamese style soup.
Yum.
There's obviously a big Vietnamese community here in New Orleans, and pho is everywhere. Mine's going to be a little bit different though, because we're going to have a lot of really fresh vegetables in it and fresh herbs. And it's going to be really delicious.
Sounds like it might be my favorite dish ever. The other thing is I'm so excited because I just really learned how to say it. Pho,
You got it.
not pho.
You got it.
Okay, pho. I got to remember that. I get it wrong every time. All right, well, let's get some eggplant and then we'll head to the kitchen.
Sounds good.
Kitchen here at Pelican Gardens, and we're going to be making some garden pho here with Mark. So what do we have going on?
All right, we've got lots of good stuff happening here. The most interesting thing about this dish, I think, is that all of these ingredients were produced by the garden. Now, that's not to say that I grew every single one of these, but either we grew them all or we traded with other restaurants for other ingredients with ingredients that we grew here.
Love it.
So obviously pho is usually made with rice noodles, but for this one, because we like to use good high quality Louisiana jasmine rice, and also because I'm able to trade produce with a local grocery store for that rice.
Yes.
So we're actually going to be using rice instead of rice noodles for this. So in a way it's kind of like a garden gumbo, where we're going to have the rice in the soup instead of rice noodles, but the flavor profile is definitely going to be much closer to a pho.
I love it. And they say, get creative, start with rice. So that's
exactly.
what we're doing.
Yep, exactly. So we've got the okra, we've got the eggplants. Here are actually some...
Chanterelles?
These are woodier mushrooms, and these I didn't grow here, but I foraged them from a local forest area. So you can forest these at various points throughout the year, and they stay really good. You can dehydrate them and they'll come right back up, and they're great in soup. So we're going to use some of those.
It's amazing how many mushrooms grow wild around
true.
here.
Yep, it's very true. Yep, and then here we've got some beautiful Mexican tarragon flowers that we're going to garnish the dish with. We've got some different herbs, like some really good mint. We've got some lime basil, not in here, but over there, and just some different herbs that we grew here. Here we have some roasted pork. So
where did you get the roasted pork?
So this came from Live Oak Cafe, which is a restaurant that I love and that I'm friends with the owners. And they are involved with a meals program during COVID right now, where they're making meals for people who can't afford it. And they make about 400 meals every week. And because of that, they always have crazy amounts of leftover scraps of their pork. So they right now have bags and bags of frozen pork scraps in their freezer. So it's perfect for a soup like this, to be able to just use a little bit of that, throw it in the soup, and it's going to be real nice. Brian's not going to eat it because he's vegetarian, but we respect that because it's a good life choice. And over here we have Asian vegetable that goes by many names. I know it is Thai watercress, but this is just a really basic Asian style green that you see all throughout Southeast Asia. Again, it's something that's used in soups a lot, also used in stir fries, and I grow it here.
And these are the limes.
Yep, and I wanted to show you these. These are a really cool ingredient here. Let me pull them out so I can show them to y'all, but yep, these are, they're called Australian finger limes. So it kind of...
That's a... Wow.
Isn't that incredible? Yep, it looks like a salmon roe or something like that, or caviar even, but it's a beautiful burst of lime flavor. So these are a really unique ingredient that we grow out here too. So we're going to use some of those in the dish.
I think that might be fantastic in a gin and tonic.
So I'm going to add a couple things to the broth here. Some of the stems from this watercress plant. And then I'm going to go ahead and just add some of this watercress into it right now too.
Okay.
So just to give it some nice greens in there. So this is what's making it just a super healthy dish. The fact that it's going to have all these greens in there.
So you're making a stir fry and then you're adding it to the soup.
Exactly. Yep. So
fantastic.
Another really popular dish that we do out here for anybody gardening out here, helping out, is just a basic garden stir fry or a garden fried rice, which this is kind of a dumbed down version of that. But you know, the beautiful thing is we could make a giant batch of this and have it to eat off for several days. It's going to be good on its own, but it'll be even better once we use it with the soup.
This smells absolutely delicious, and I cannot wait to dig in with my new friends to this garden pho. And if you'd like to know more about Pelican Gardens, you can visit our website at twilatv.org. I am ready for some good eating.
Field to Feast with Jennifer Finley was brought to you by the Louisiana Crawfish Promotion and Research Board, Louisiana Crawfish, ask before you eat, and by the Louisiana Beef Industry Council, beef, it's what's for dinner, and by the Louisiana Rice Promotion Board, think rice.
Week after week, we strive to share the stories of Louisiana's farmers and ranchers so that you will hopefully gain a better understanding of how your food and fiber are produced. In this week's Twila Boost, we bring you a video from Growing America showcasing one farmer's mission to educate consumers about the blood, sweat, and tears that go into producing our food.
Having a conversation with someone and they didn't realize that their eggs come from a farm. Wow. That's tough. That's tough. I think, unfortunately, there is a part of the population that is removed from understanding agriculture. My name is Christina McInnes. I'm from the Warner family, who's been farming for over 100 years. I'm a mother of 4 children, and it's important to me that I'm raising them to appreciate not only being a farmer and from a farming family, but agriculture in the nation. I think it's unfortunate that there's this segment of the population that doesn't understand agriculture and where their food comes from. I was raised watching my grandfather, Charles Kickler. He started his day before the sun rose and finished every day after the sun went down. And I can remember working on the potato shed with him. We were grading. I was only allowed to grade the sweet potatoes. He never let me go on the forklift because he was afraid I was going to get hurt. And I was grading sweet potatoes one day in his potato shed, and he was cleaning out the equipment and the gears, and it caught his fingers. And he just wrapped it up, and they took him over to get stitched up. And when I went to check on his fingers a couple days later, I realized he had no fingertips. Farmers literally give their blood, sweat, and tears to their job. And it is the most important thing they do, is to provide the best produce they can in agriculture to our food supply and marketplace. And it's unfortunate that the segment of population doesn't understand the work that went into it even before the blood, sweat, and tears of the farmer, the environmental conditions, the soil conditions, the whole part of farming and agriculture that goes into just producing one sweet potato on the other side. If I had one nugget of wisdom to share, it would definitely have to be a little bit of tough love. Raised on the farm, raised by a bunch of strong women, I've learned that who you are is not good enough, because if you've been given this day, start the ground running, because you can be better.
Always great to see stories like that. Well, that does it for this edition of Twila. Be sure to join us next week when we'll introduce you to the 2020 Louisiana Ag in the Classroom Teacher of the Year. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and also you'll find all these stories on our YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you know we put new stuff on there. For all of us here at Twila, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.